Here's something gripping for your video intro. I never imagined a single discovery could shatter my sister's world and turn my own life upside down. But that's exactly what happened. It all started with something small, something innocent, a detail that didn't add up, a moment of doubt that grew into suspicion. And before I knew it, I had stumbled upon a secret so shocking, so devastating, that it left me questioning everything I thought I knew about the man my sister married. My sister, Emily, had been with Jake for almost 10 years. To everyone around them, they were the perfect couple. Happy, supportive, the kind of love story people admire. Jake was charming, dependable, the kind of guy who knew how to make people feel comfortable. My family adored him, and even I had never questioned his loyalty. But looking back, I realize now that maybe we were all too trusting, too willing to believe in the image he presented. Because behind the smiles and affectionate gestures, Jake was hiding something none of us saw coming. It all began on an ordinary evening. I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't snooping around, but something about the way Jake had been acting lately, distant, distracted, taking mysterious phone calls, made me uneasy. I brushed it off at first, convincing myself I was overthinking. But then I noticed something strange. A name popped up on his phone screen when he left it unattended for just a moment. A name I didn't recognize. And the way he quickly snatched his phone and glanced around nervously, it was enough to make my stomach tighten. I told myself to let it go. It wasn't my business. But something about it just didn't sit right with me. And so, against my better judgment, I started paying more attention. Little things that once seemed harmless now look suspicious. Late-night work meetings that never used to happen. Unexplained weekend trips. The way he suddenly became more protective over his phone. I told myself I was imagining things, that I had no proof. But then, one night, fate intervened. A misplaced receipt. A simple piece of paper that held the key to everything, and what I found on it confirmed my worst fears. That moment changed everything. My heart pounded as I put the pieces together, my hands shaking as I realized the truth. My sister's husband had a double life, and I was the one who uncovered it. But the real question was, what was I supposed to do with this knowledge? How could I break my sister's heart and destroy the life she thought was real? And was I even ready for what I might uncover next? I felt my stomach twist. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, I already knew that wasn't true. Something was wrong. And now that I had seen this, I couldn't just ignore it. Restaurant. What I didn't know was that the secrets ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. And once I took the first step down this path, there was no turning back. Stay with me because this story is about to take a turn no one saw coming. Bill. It was proof that Jake had been somewhere he shouldn't have been, spending money on someone who wasn't my sister. The date on it was recent, just a few nights ago, when he had told Emily he was out of town for work. But the restaurant wasn't in another city. It was right here, just a few miles away. And then there was the name at the bottom, the name that wasn't his. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, but curiosity got the best of me. I typed the restaurant's name into my phone, scrolling through photos of the place, imagining Jake sitting there with someone else. Was it just dinner? Or was this part of something bigger? I tried to push the thought away, but it wouldn't leave me alone. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I decided to look deeper. Over the next few days, I started paying attention like never before. I noticed how often Jake was busy, how his stories didn't always line up. I even checked his social media, something I had never cared to do before. And that's when I saw it. Small details that didn't seem important at first. A tagged location he never mentioned. A comment from a woman I didn't recognize. A pattern started forming, and the more I looked, the more I saw the cracks in his perfect image. I knew I had to be sure before I said anything to Emily. I couldn't just accuse Jake without proof, but how far was I willing to go to find out the truth? Then, one night, everything changed. I was at a coffee shop when I saw him. At first, I wasn't sure, but then he turned and there was no doubt. It was Jake. And he wasn't alone. He was sitting across from a woman leaning in close, smiling in a way that made my stomach drop. They looked comfortable, familiar, and the worst part? He wasn't acting like someone who thought he might get caught. He was acting like a man who had done this 100 times before. I could have walked away. I could have pretended I didn't see it, but something inside me wouldn't let me. I had to know more. I had to know everything. So I took a deep breath, steadied my hands, and did the only thing I could think of. I pulled out my phone, and I hit record. My hands shook as I held up my phone, trying to steady the camera without drawing attention. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to stay still, to focus. Jake was laughing, his hand resting casually on the table, inches away from hers. The woman leaned in, her expression warm, familiar, like this wasn't the first time they had met here. I had to remind myself to breathe. This wasn't just a casual meeting. This was something more. And the worst part? He looked happy, comfortable, like this was his real life, and my sister was the secret. A wave of anger hit me, but I pushed it down. This wasn't about me. This was about Emily, my sister, who loved this man with everything she had, who had spent years building a life with him, trusting him. And here he was, sitting across from another woman, completely unaware that I was watching. I wanted to march over there, demand answers, make a scene. But I knew that wouldn't help. If I was going to tell Emily, I needed more than just one blurry video. I needed to understand what was really happening. So I waited. I watched. I followed. Over the next few days, I tracked his movements, searching for patterns, anything that would explain the truth. And what I found was worse than I imagined. Jake wasn't just sneaking around. He was living a completely separate life. Different restaurants, different schedules, and different people. There wasn't just one woman. There were several. Each time, he acted the same, comfortable, confident, like he had done this 100 times before. And with every new piece of evidence, my heart broke a little more for my sister. But I still didn't know the full truth. I didn't know how deep this went, or how long it had been going on. All I knew was that once I told Emily, there would be no going back, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what would happen next. The weight of what I had discovered sat heavy on my chest. Every time I saw my sister smile, every time she mentioned Jake's name with love in her voice, I felt sick. She had no idea what was happening behind her back. No idea that the man she had built her life with was playing a role, switching between two different worlds like it was nothing. I knew I couldn't stay silent forever, but before I confronted him or told Emily, I needed to be absolutely sure. So I kept watching, kept digging, and with every day that passed, I uncovered more. Jake was careful, but not careful enough. His lies were layered, but I had started pulling at the threads, and they were beginning to unravel. The more I paid attention, the more I saw the cracks in his story. Fake business trips that were actually weekend getaways, dinners that weren't with colleagues, but with another woman, different stories told to different people, all overlapping just enough that he thought no one would notice. Then, one night, I got the final piece of proof. I had followed him after work, my pulse racing as I trailed behind at a distance. He parked his car outside an unfamiliar house, not a hotel, not a restaurant, a house. And then, without hesitation, he walked up to the front door, used a key, and stepped inside like he belonged there. I sat frozen in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. a key. Not just a meeting spot, not just a fling. This was something bigger. This was home to him. My heart pounded as I tried to make sense of what I had just seen. If he had a key, that meant trust. That meant permanence. That meant my sister wasn't just being cheated on. She was being lied to on a level I hadn't even considered. And then, just when I thought I couldn't be more shocked, the front door opened again, and a child ran out, a little boy, and he called Jake Daddy. I felt the air leave my lungs as I watched the little boy run into Jake's arms. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. A child, his child. My sister's husband had an entire family my sister knew nothing about. Jake scooped the boy up effortlessly, laughing like a father who had done this a million times before. There was no hesitation, no guilt in his eyes. He belonged here, like this was just another normal evening for him. My hands were shaking. I couldn't believe it. A part of me wanted to burst through the door and scream the truth at him, at the woman inside who had no idea her perfect life was built on lies. Or maybe she did. Maybe she knew exactly who Jake was, and they were both keeping this secret from my sister. I grabbed my phone, my heart racing. I needed proof. I needed Emily to see what I was seeing, or else it would sound too insane to be real. So I recorded everything. The way he kissed the boy on the forehead. The way he walked back inside, carrying him like it was the most natural thing in the world. And then I sat there, stunned, trying to figure out what to do next. I thought I had uncovered the worst of it, but this changed everything. Jake wasn't just cheating, he was living a double life in the most literal sense. A second home, a second family. And who knew how long this had been going on? How many years had my sister been unknowingly sharing her husband with someone else? I knew I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. I had to tell Emily. But just as I reached for my phone to call her, something even stranger happened. A car pulled up in front of the house. A woman stepped out, but it wasn't Emily. And it wasn't the woman from inside the house either. It was someone else. And the moment Jake stepped outside again, his face lit up with recognition. Then, before I could even begin to process it, he kissed her, a third woman. And in that moment, I realized the truth was even worse than I had imagined. I couldn't breathe. My mind refused to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. 3 women, 3 lives, and Jake, standing there so effortlessly, like a man who had perfected the art of deception. I felt sick. My sister wasn't just married to a liar, she was married to a master manipulator, someone who had built an entire existence out of betrayal. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I hit dial and called Emily. My hands trembled as I whispered, "You need to come here. Now." She could hear the urgency in my voice, the crack of emotion I couldn't hide. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "I'm on my way." Minutes felt like hours as I waited. When Emily finally arrived, she looked confused, worried, but when she saw where we were and who we were watching, her expression changed. She went pale, her breath caught in her throat. She saw Jake laughing with the woman, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. I turned to her, waiting for tears, for anger, but instead she let out a breath and whispered, "I knew something wasn't right." And then she did something I didn't expect. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Before I could ask what she was doing, she stepped forward, not toward Jake, but toward the other woman, the one from the house. I watched in stunned silence as Emily called her name. The woman turned, her face shifting from surprise to something else. Recognition. The other woman's expression hardened as realization set in. "You mean you're his wife?" she asked Emily, her voice barely above a whisper. Emily nodded, her grip tightening around her phone. The Jake finally saw Emily. His body went rigid, panic flashing across his face for the first time. He opened his mouth to speak, but Emily wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the other woman. And then Emily said the words that sent a chill down my spine. "How long has he been lying to you two?" The woman's eyes widened. She looked between Jake and Emily, her expression slowly shifting from confusion to realization. And in that moment, I knew. My sister hadn't just found out the truth. She had been waiting for the proof to bring him down. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the truth hung between them, thick and suffocating. Jake looked like a man trapped, eyes darting between Emily and the woman from the house, searching for a way out. But there wasn't one, not this time. Woman turned to Jake, her face twisting in anger. "You told me you were divorced." Jake opened his mouth, scrambling for words, but Emily cut him off. "Save it. I know everything." Her voice was calm, steady, but I could see the storm raging beneath the surface. The third woman, the one Jake had kissed just moments before, stepped closer, confusion turning to fury. "Wait, what is going on?" she demanded, and that's when it all fell apart. Within seconds, both women were throwing accusations at Jake, piecing together the lies he had fed them. The house, the child, the years of deception. Jake stood there, exposed, powerless for the first time. No excuses, no charm could save him now. Emily didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply looked at him, a quiet strength in her eyes. "You don't get to lie your way out of this," she said. "We're done." And with that, she turned and walked away. I followed, glancing back one last time to see the two women still confronting him, demanding answers he could never truly give. In the end, Jake lost everything. His carefully built web of lies collapsed in a single night. And Emily? She walked away with her head high, knowing she had taken back control. As we got into the car, she let out a deep breath. "I should have seen it sooner," she admitted. I shook my head. "You saw exactly when you needed to." She gave me a small, knowing smile. "And now he has to live with the truth." And with that, we drove away, leaving Jake and his lies behind us for good.